Hello everyone, I'm MVL and welcome to my shop tour and gaming pickups for Super Tomato in Cardiff. Now this is a really awesome shop. It's off the beaten track, but I was able to find it with only a 10 minutes walk from the town centre, recommended to me by my friends at a retro gaming forum. I found it with my phone and Google Maps, and you're looking at the consoles outside in the window at the moment. The owner was very kind and allowed me to film inside the shop, which was awesome. You're going to see a lot of jump cuts because I had to keep cutting and filming again. I didn't want to interrupt people coming into the shop or put anyone off. So here we have the first cabinet right here, and Gameboy Games, as you can see, Game Boy consoles, Game Boy Advanced, lots of awesome stuff, loads of Game Boy games, and we have some Game & Watches down here that we're coming up to, really awesome. And we have some Game Boy Color games, as you can see here, Final Fantasy, Rayman, and some Game Boy games, some choice Game Boy games here, Super Mario Land, Paperboy. And moving on to the next cabinet, we have a Commodore 64 computer there. That's awesome to see that. And in this first cabinet here, we have a Nintendo 64 sitting on an NES. And we have some Game Gear games and Game Gear consoles. I actually picked up a Game Gear game. It was cool to see those. Game Boy here and Donkey Kong in the box. That's cool to see. Another Game Gear console and some games. Over here we have a Nintendo 64 in the box. Japanese N64 there, and an Asuka figure. No one is ready for Asuka! Sorry, I couldn't help myself. Another boxed N64 here, some controllers, and an N64 RAM expansion pack there. It's cool if you need that. Some more N64 games, boxed N64 games, loads of N64 games here, and more boxed N64 games. Really cool that they have such a great selection of those. That is awesome to see right there. And moving on, we have a Super Famicom there, some cool controllers there, some joysticks, NES games there, and a light gun. We have some more NES games, some awesome stuff there. Super Mario 3 in the box for the NES, some more NES games right there, loads of NES games. Moving on to the Sega section, I'll just give you a quick look at some of the controllers and bits and bobs up the top there. And we have a boxed Mega Drive Model 2 and loads of boxed Mega Drive games here. Console there in that container, as you can see. They also had a Japanese Golden Axe 2 with some awesome artwork that I like the look of. A great selection of games. Sonic 2, Terminator 2, loads of boxed games there for the Sega Mega Drive, and a cool Aviator controller there. And there is a Sega Saturn steering wheel controller and a Zelda hoodie. That's pretty cool. Moving along here to this next cabinet, we have some boxed consoles just above it. And we have some Atari 2600 games with some Transformer figures. More 2600 games. Grand Theft Auto, I can see there for the PlayStation. Some choice PlayStation games there. Jade Cocoon, Breath of Fire. That's awesome. Atari 2600 consoles and controllers. And this is really awesome, a Super Nintendo kiosk, and that's awesome. It's really cool to see that. Looks like it's playing a Japanese version of Street Fighter 2 there. That's really cool to see that. And we also have a Dreamcast kiosk. Now how cool is that? A Dreamcast kiosk right there in the shop that you could play if you wanted to, which is really sweet. So over here, and we have some more cabinets. This is the middle section of the shop. We have some Nintendo stuff here. I just had to zoom in to these Mega Man NES games. That's awesome to see those. Pretty rare, pretty hard to find. Some more NES stuff and some figures down there. Some Super Nintendo box games. Secrets of Mana and The Legend of Zelda for the Super Nintendo. Now we have some more Super Nintendo stuff here in this cabinet. Some Super Nintendo games, loose cartridges and boxed games. Really cool. There's a joystick there. And some boxed games at the bottom there for the Super Nintendo. Loads of games in this shop. And moving on to the next cabinet, which is also in the middle, we have some retro computers there. Some Atari computers, a joystick. Black Atari 2600 there, and I think that is an Atari 7800 underneath it there. And then we have some Sega Mega Drive stuff, some Sega CD, Mega CD Model 1 and Mega CD Model 2. We have a Sega Master System console. We have a Sega Saturn there, and we have some trading cards down here if that's your thing. And down the bottom we have some more Sega consoles, Master System Model 2 and Mega Drive Model 2. and a Mega Drive Model 1, which is always nice to see, some games and some trading cards. Moving on here, we have some PlayStation box consoles and a promotional Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2. PlayStation games here, loads of PlayStation 1 games, really good selection. It's awesome to see that many games there. Now on the inside of the front window we have some figures on display here, some various Star Wars figures and things like that. Really cool to have a look at those. And just next to them there was a cabinet with a Dreamcast race controller and some GameCube controllers and consoles, lots of different variants there, and a Donkey Konga bongo set, which is really cool. Looks like we have a fight stick down there as well, and a Donkey Konga set in the box. Now there's a lot of manga or graphic novels or possibly adult literature, I'm not really sure. It's not my kind of thing, but they do have all sorts here, which is really cool. There's a big wide variety. Up here we have some GameCube games. Zelda there is really cool. Resident Evil, their remake is very good. Some controllers just there, some leads, and I'm not really sure what that stuff is, but collectible no doubt. There's some vintage computers up there. We have some Dreamcast games, always good to see Dreamcast games, I love the Dreamcast, and some more manga books there, and some comics down the bottom there. And up here we have an old CRT monitor for a computer next to some Sega Saturn games. There's a good variety of Sega Saturn here, that's really cool to see. And we have some more graphic novels over there, and now some Sega stuff, that's cool. Sega Master System, they have a lot of Sega Master System here. Box gun, box consoles, loads of games. Some bits and bobs down the bottom here. Now they were in the process of moving along the PlayStation 2 games and the Sega Master System to put them all together, so that's why there's not as much up there. Some original Xbox there and PlayStation 2, and there's some Sega Master System underneath it boxed, and they actually had 3 times as much Sega Master System games that you're seeing out here. They're just not on the shelf at this time. 8080 there is really cool. Some vintage PC stuff and Amiga stuff. There's a Dune 2 there, and some cassettes. It's very rarely do I see cassette games in person. There's a very healthy selection here, and some old computer books there. And I'm just zooming in to Ghostbusters on the Commodore 64. That game has Invader Load as a loading game, which is awesome. And here's a look at ZX Spectrum there, and a load of cassette games. It's really cool to see these in person. Really good selection as well, so that's sweet. Lots of cassette games. I did have a good look at those. Some consoles there. You can see a lot of consoles. Woody 2600 Dreamcasts. Lots of Sega Mega Drives. Sega Saturns there. Loads of controllers. Finally, back to the front of the shop. One more shot of those awesome kiosks. Those are really sweet. And we move over to the cabinets on the opposite side of the center. We have some more figures here in this cabinet. Really cool that they have such a wide variety of items in the shop. And we have some more figures in this center cabinet right here. I'm spying C-3PO there, and a He-Man figure down there. Some Star Wars stuff at the bottom there also. And lastly, we have some vintage computers, Commodore 64, some games and things like that. Really awesome to see this kind of thing. You don't often see it. And some choice PlayStation 2 and Dreamcast games. So that was Super Tomato in Cardiff. Awesome shop. Unfortunately, by the time I'd finished filming, we'd run out of parking and we're facing a 5-hour journey back to Cornwall. I panicked. These games! Managed to pick up some cool games. If I'd had a little more time, I would have picked up more stuff. Definitely more Master System stuff. But this is what I got. Now, for the Commodore 64, a system I never see games for in person, I picked up a couple of awesome games. The first one is Crazy Comets. E equals MC squared, help! Now, this is an awesome looking space shooter game. Really takes advantage of what the Commodore 64 can do. You get a very cool, almost 3D perspective with the comets flying towards you at your spaceship as you shoot them down. Really awesome looking game. Crazy Comets for the Commodore 64. Next up is Renegade. Renegade is an awesome 2D side-scrolling beat-em-up arcade game. Now, this game was actually ported to the Master System as well, and I bet they had a copy of that somewhere, so I regret not asking about that. Nevertheless, this looks awesome, and I love beat-em-up games. Renegade for the Commodore 64. Next up, Gauntlet. Storm for the Commodore 64. Now, this game is a very blatant clone of Gauntlet. Having said that, this has a really cool art style, it looks fantastic, and as this is exclusive to the 8-bit computers, I picked it up for the Commodore 64 because that's the system that I have. Storm for the Commodore 64. Next up, I picked up a game for the Game Gear, and it is Crystal Warriors. Now, Crystal Warriors is a Game Gear exclusive. It actually has the option for up to 2 players. I don't think I'll be able to do that on the Retro Freak, which is what I recorded this with via HDMI. I imagine you will need 2 Game Gear systems. I have been looking for this game. It's sweet to pick that up. Crystal Warriors for the Game Gear. Now onto the Master System. The first game I picked up is Rastan. That's right, not Conan, Rastan. Conan and Rastan are clearly different things, and one of them is definitely not heavily inspired by the other. Rastan is an arcade game by Taito that was ported to the Master System, which is probably the best console version you can get. I also have the arcade version of this game on the original Xbox in the Taito Legends compilation. The Master System version of this game, however, does have redesigned levels, and it looks awesome and it's really fun to play. I have been looking for this game, finally found it, really sweet to pick that up, Rastan on the Sega Master System. And finally, for the Sega Master System, Time Soldiers. Time Soldiers is a top-down shooter for the Sega Master System. This game supports 2 players, and I've been playing it with my friend Odin, and it is awesome to play this game in 2 players. It's a really sweet arcade game. In this game, you're on a mission to venture through time and space to save your comrades. It's really awesome. It seems that the levels play out randomly. You could start in the past or in the present or in the future. We found it very amusing that you take the same amount of damage from a caveman throwing a knife than you do from a soldier shooting you with his rifle. This game is really awesome, really glad to pick it up, Time Soldiers on the Sega Master System. And those are all of my pickups from Super Tomato. Please like, comment and subscribe, and I'll catch you next time.